everyone. Welcome to Project LeanNation. I am very excited to introduce our third session of the Women's Wellness Series. And we are here to talk about bloat to balance, unlocking women's gut health. And Project LeanNation is not only a healthy prepared meal company, but we also are a community that's dedicated to not only helping people achieve those sustainable wellness through nutrition, education, and accountability too. So tonight we are thrilled to introduce to you Rhya Pachin, and she is the founder of Carolina Functional Nutrition. She's a registered dietitian nutritionist, and she specializes in functional and integrative nutrition. So she helps her clients uncover the root causes of digestive issues, any hormonal imbalances, and chronic inflammation too. So her approach combines the science, personalization, and her compassion to help people truly unlock that bloat to balance. Thank you. There's the word. So that way they really heal from inside out. So please join me in welcoming Rhya Pachin.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Yay. And she's going to guide us on how to do exactly that. So please feel free to grab a guide too, and I'm going to turn it over for when you're ready.
Okay.
Awesome.
And of course now we just...
That's okay.
Oh, okay.
That's okay.
Is it going to come back? Oh, there we go.
Perfect.
Okay. Well, hello, everyone. I'm Rhya, and we are going to have fun. Since it's a smaller group, if you have questions along the way, just feel free to stop and interrupt me. I probably won't take very long, and I will save time for questions at the end. So anything, you can ask me anything, just fire away. So a little bit about me. I like to tell people that before I was me, I was you. And I, as many functional health providers especially, come from a background of my own health journey, one that was filled with more questions than answers for a really long time, and just felt like banging my head against a wall for years and years. And the way that I found answers was through nutrition and functional medicine principles. Traditional medicine is wonderful, but it didn't fix my chronic inflammation, and no one really had answers for me a long time. So I was actually diagnosed with Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune form of hypothyroid. I was diagnosed officially 2 times. I think I had it 3 times. And it doesn't usually go away, right? That probably sounds weird. Anyway, just me saying that. My labs were actually mostly within normal limits. So the first time I was diagnosed, no one put me on medication. Then I finally kind of lobbied because I was feeling so bad, and eventually got on medication, felt a little bit better, then was able to get off, then had babies, got diagnosed again, kind of started the whole thing all over. Couldn't find a doctor who really could think outside the box or knew what to do with me while I'm, crying in a puddle in their office and my kids are like ripping everything apart. So it's definitely been a journey. I dealt with food sensitivities, I dealt with IBS and like gut health issues, and it was all kind of interconnected. So anyway, just so you know, that's also where a lot of like my passion and my interest for this comes from, is that I've been there too. And I've dealt with a lot of the things that most of my clients, come to me with. So that's my kind of story, but I've been in remission for at least 7 years. It might have been a little bit longer by now, maybe 8 years. But I've been in remission through, just using nutrition and functional medicine principles to really get to the root cause and deal with, all the gut, thyroid hormone, inflammation issues. And so here we are. So that's partly why I went back to school and got my master's in nutrition, because I wanted to help other people just in the way that I knew I could help them without hopefully having to go through such a, emotional and long journey. So we'll talk about a few things tonight. It's all very interconnected, so I'll kind of jump around, but we're going to talk about gut health, inflammation, specifically how the gut is connected to other parts of the body, which I think is something that gets kind of overlooked sometimes. I think we think of like digestive problems as like their own isolated issue, but it can greatly affect other parts of the body like dominoes. And then we'll talk about, just briefly, I'll give you an overview of like the functional medicine slash nutrition 5R gut healing framework. I didn't make it up, so it's a thing, and I'll teach you about it just so you're kind of aware of what that looks like. And then we'll talk about really specific nutrition strategies that can help both when you're working through a program as well as just for now, kind of like intermittently. And then we'll kind of go from there. So the reason I got into gut health is not because I love gut health. I do now, but when I first started, it was really, I fell into it because, first of all, there's such a big gap in traditional care when it comes to GI and digestive. I mean, I had a new patient today. She's 21 and basically already on 2 medications for life because that's the only options that they have for her. And she's 21, and she's not deficient in those medications. And they're not fixing anything, right? They're only managing her symptoms so that she feels better and doesn't feel the symptoms, but they're still there. The medication is just suppressing them. So there's like a really big difference in the way that from a nutritional and a functional medicine standpoint that we handle things. So, but there's such a big gap in GI care that I was like, oh my goodness, like all these people have GI issues I never realized, and they're not getting answers. And so that's how I got into gut health. And then I started to realize as I worked for a variety of physicians in different specialties, and like neurology, cardiology, primary care, internal medicine, food allergy, immunology. And they all had one thing in common: the gut is connected to everything. And so then I really got into gut health, and I was like, this is going to be my thing. And so the gut microbiome is that collection of good bacteria that lives in our gut. And we have more bacteria that live in our gut than we have cells in our entire body. So we're basically just like blobs of bacteria walking around, and we're kind of organized by cells. So we really have a lot of bacteria. And so because of that, it's like this central hub of communication, and it communicates to all the rest of the body and signals to the rest of the body. So there's amazing studies out there now on how gut bacteria balance and diversity are linked to a lower BMI, improved cognitive function. I just did a presentation in Vegas on longevity and how it relates to the gut. And I even learned things preparing for that presentation, because it's amazing the things they've tested in relationship, like our cognition. That's just so wild to think that our ability to think clearly, form words, remember things, find patterns, especially in older people, that it's connected to our gut. It's pretty wild. A stronger immune system, longevity, like I mentioned, they're calling it like a younger old. So in other words, like someone who's old is like acting like an older version of that older person. And then a younger old is like someone who's, 80, but looks and acts like they're 60 or something. So it's very interesting how the gut is literally connected to everything. And so why does that matter? So what starts in the gut can show up as other symptoms. It can sometimes start in the gut, or sometimes it doesn't. I mean, when I dealt with Hashimoto's, I wouldn't say my gut issues were the worst in my mind. I felt like it was like normal kind of stuff, but my symptoms showed up in other ways, like, weight gain, fatigue, those types of things. So a lot of women come to me, for example, and they might be like, all I want to do is just lose weight. But it's not always that simple. It's not like you can just press a button or change. It's like there's no shortcut, especially as we get older, that you just have to do the work, right? And we have to find the root cause. And so inflammation, this is the perfect example for inflammation. It's such a buzzword that we all hear, but like, what does it really mean? And what does it really look like? And this is what it looks like. What we see on the outside when we look at someone is just the top of the iceberg. Most of the iceberg and the bulk of it is really underneath the surface. So like if you have a headache, I can't see it, right? If my knee hurts, you can't necessarily tell. Now, sometimes if it's really bad or obvious, you might be able to see, but there are many things we all walk around with. Most people on the planet are walking around, well, at least in, developed countries, we're walking around with like a low grade of inflammation all the time. It's just chronic, but it's little things, that people can't always see. We might even feel it, but they don't see it. And so these are just some ways that it can result. But again, what's the commonality between all these things? If you have like an imbalanced gut, we call it dysbiosis. If you have food sensitivities, is it really the food, or is it our gut that just can't handle the food? And if it's healed, then it can handle it better. Stress, processed food, disordered eating, medications for sure. I would say those for me are the hardest part about working in nutrition because I don't prescribe. But I will tell you, when people walk in and they're on like all these medications, it's like, it's you can work around it, but only so much, because they permanently change the gut microbiome. And this is obviously not something that we're talking about when we get the prescription written to us. So usually it's a combination of these things. There's not one thing that's gonna, cause your whole body your whole world to turn upside down. It's usually what I call like the perfect storm, because most people come to me and they're like, I just don't even know how I got here. Like, let alone how to fix this, but I don't even know how I got here. And it's usually that perfect storm. It's, you were kind of at this tipping point, and then there's a trigger and something happens and kind of like launches everything. So specifically, when we talk about, how the gut is connected to other parts of the body, the gut-brain connection is probably maybe one you've heard of. And these are just really specific examples of exactly what that means and what that looks like. I see this all the time. So like, you have someone who is dealing with chronic stress. Our bodies can handle stress, right? We can work out, we can max out our weights. We can, lift a car off of a baby. We can do all kinds of things, right, when we have to, but we can't do that every day, right? That's the challenge, is we can't live like that every day. Our bodies just weren't designed for that. So we're living in chronic stress. That can change. It can alter our microbiome. Now, stress alone isn't going to like cause someone to have IBS from what I can see. It's usually, like I said, a perfect storm with multiple factors, but it can affect the microbiome. And then that affects our digestion. And then if that goes on for long enough, then it causes this dysbiosis, which is just imbalance. And then that stresses your body more. And then that stress affects physiologically the body. It affects you emotionally. It can even affect the brain, because then you're not absorbing nutrients and you're just like trapped in the cycle. Same thing with like anxiety is another common related mood disorder or imbalance that is connected to gut issues. And when I worked in neurology, we would always joke about like, oh, well, like, who's more important? Like the gut, because I did gut and he did brain. And it's like, oh, well, my neurology is more important. It's really hard to tell sometimes where it starts. Like, you can really see it almost starting concurrently together. But someone has anxiety, maybe they're prone to anxiety, right? Maybe some of it is hardwired in their body. Maybe it's their environment they grew up in, their diet, all these different things. And eventually your digestion, your toxin removal gets compromised. And then you have less blood flow to the liver, and then like that worsens your anxiety. Like, it's just these little things that we don't think about. Or this one I get a lot. I have someone who comes in with nausea. Now, they also have anxiety. Which came first? Sometimes it's really hard to tell, but they have both. And, in this case, a lot of the people I'm seeing are maybe seeing like a therapist and they're seeing me, or they're working with another dietitian that does disordered eating, or there's some other component. But the problem is, it's like, that is a multifaceted issue. That nausea is eventually stimulating their stress system, which then worsens anxiety. So it's like, is the anxiety actually like a chemical imbalance in your brain? Or is it just because you're having this physiological response to not feeling well and being afraid to eat? And so it's all like, I always tell people it's like a pile of spaghetti. It's hard sometimes to tell like where one piece ends and another begins, but it's really important to acknowledge that, if someone comes in with anxiety, or they started taking a medication for anxiety, is it just in their brain? Probably not. It's probably a mirror of what is also going on in the gut. Similarly, same with hormones. Now, hormones don't actually do anything. They receive signals. They don't necessarily like put out anything, if that makes sense. So really, they're on the receiving end of signaling more often. And so perfect examples of how I know, at least a lot of the patients, I think this is more known now, but how would my gut and my hormones be connected? Like, how does that even make any sense? So perfect couple of examples. So there's actually a newly studied microbiome. So when I say microbiome, that's the collection of good bacteria you have. Most of it is concentrated in the gut. So our gut microbiome is the biggest one we have, but then we also have like a skin microbiome. We have like an eyeball microbiome. We have like, all different organs and systems of our body have their own little kind of microcosm. And so there's actually something called the estrobolome, which is the estrogen slash microbiome interaction. It's a thing, it's like been studied, and it's kind of wild, but like specifically when there are bacteria in our gut that are bad, not supposed to be there, overgrowing, it actually influences estrogen and tells estrogen to be recycled. Well, estrogen is a good thing, right? Estrogen is not bad, but it's a very bossy hormone. It's like very in charge, and we can't have too much. We can't have it in the wrong places, right? Like some cancers, that's what estrogen is like too much. We don't want it taxing the liver. We don't want it gunking up the colon, and that's what happens. And so that's how we see this interaction is, like, for example, of a woman that's constipated, and part of it is, yes, the gut and the digestion and all these things, but part of it is if there's these bacteria that are overgrown, they're not only just collecting, but they're causing estrogen to be recycled. And so then you're just holding extra estrogen. So sometimes like extra weight isn't just like fat, it's just toxins, it's estrogen, it's water, it's inflammation. And so it's just a very nuanced connection, but super important. And so same thing, like when, we work on, I have a patient who, she probably has had celiac undiagnosed for probably 10 to 15 years, finally like decided to go to the doctor and like deal with her stuff, and was diagnosed, and like also has Hashimoto's, also is going through menopause, like just all the things at once. And it's a lot. And, she got really frustrated because she went on hormones. She's like, I did what I was supposed to. I went on my thyroid medication, like my endocrinologist told me. I'm even on bioidentical hormones, and I don't feel better. And I'm not losing weight, and I feel horrible. And it's like, it's because your gut, like you're not absorbing the medicines you're taking. And there's no shortcut. We just have to do it. And so people never want to hear that, but it's honestly the truth. So, so the gut hormone connection and gut brain are very important kind of domino effects from the gut, but it all starts in the gut. This is just a really brief summary, 30,000 foot view overview of what I do when we are working on gut issues. I didn't make this up. It's a pretty standard like functional medicine template, but there is a method to the madness in terms of how we improve the gut. And so first we get rid of triggers, which could be food or infection, or just like overgrowth, which is very common after someone's taken like antibiotics. That's usually the most common thing that tips the scales. And then let me see if I pulled these out. So I'll go through each of them. So the most common things I see are food sensitivities, not really food allergies, but those can be triggers, of course, as well. I do have patients sometimes that know they have food allergies and eat them anyway, like if it's not life-threatening. So that's going to mess your gut up pretty good. But sensitivities are even more common. The graphic on the right with the green, yellow, red kind of like spectrum scale is a snapshot from a test that I do, and it looks at sensitivities. Sensitivities aren't permanent. They do go away, but they can be triggers. And sometimes it's just for a little bit, and sometimes it's more long-term. I have things that I avoid long-term, and then there are things that, I've been able to, someone's at the door. Yeast, bacteria, parasites are also very common. I find those a lot in doing stool testing. So I do a lot of stool tests with people. They do them at home, and then I help them kind of analyze and go from there. Replace is the second R, and this I kind of do in combination with the first one, but this is where we're working on digestion. And digestion is obviously important for, processing nutrients and absorption. And for some reason, when gut function becomes a little bit compromised, digestion tends to follow. And so it's not a permanent problem. It's not something long-term. It's just usually something that we have to kind of give the body some extra love while it's healing. And then eventually they'll be able to kind of get off of these types of supplements. So I don't put people on 15 or 20 supplements. That's definitely not me, but I do use supplements because it does help in the meantime. You'll feel better faster with supplements. And then repair. This is probably what most people need in the world. And it's the hardest to complete because what happens, I think human nature is we start to feel better in that first phase 1 and 2. And then this is where if you don't complete this phase, everything comes back. So that graphic on the right is just, it's probably way too much going on, but basically those little tan things with the orange circles, those are like your cells inside your intestine if you looked at it with a microscope. And then on the right, the bright orange, you can see there's gaps in between them. That's literally what leaky gut looks like if you look at it. So it is a real thing. It's not just a cool buzzword. And so what's happening there in that on that orange side is that that little blue thing going between the orange things and down below into the blood, that's not supposed to go into the blood, right? The intestines are supposed to like kind of buffer and absorb everything that's going into the gut, and then it kind of filters, right? But the one on the right, there's literally like holes, and so stuff is just going straight into the blood. So allergens, bacteria, stuff that's not supposed to be there, and that's very irritating and alarming to the body. So this is where we use nutrients, and nutrition really shines with repair. You just have to make sure you do it long enough. And this is also what's not happening after people go on antibiotics and why we have so many digestive problems in our country. We also re-inoculate, which just is a fancy word for like put stuff back. So we're putting back probiotics and prebiotics, just because, especially if you've taken antibiotics or if there's some sort of imbalance, a lot of times you need that. Now, this is, I think, where people focus, right? I think, but if you think about, I already showed you 3 other steps. And then, so sometimes people jump to this one and they're like, I don't know why I don't feel better. And it's just because you weren't ready for that step yet. We have to do the first 3 first, and then we can get to this point. But there's also about 1,000,001 probiotics you can take. So not all of them are going to make everybody feel better at the exact same time in the same way. You have to kind of know how to use them, when to use them. So I typically use testing because we can personalize it and we can see what do you specifically need in your gut. And like right now, there's a really popular probiotic called Akkermansia. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. It's like all that's in my feed on social media. And I'm like, get out of here, because it's like, but they make it sound like every woman in menopause, every woman needs this and you're low in it. Well, you're not, you don't know that. And it maybe won't hurt you, but like, it's such a waste of money and time. So I use testing, especially if we're trying to get out of an active, problem like a flare or an active disease condition. So, but pre and probiotics are very important to reestablish, especially after antibiotic use. And then rebalance. This is the part that nobody wants to do or feels kind of frou-frou, but it's really not. I just posted a study the other day on how circadian rhythm is a predictor of heart attacks, like crazy, because people think like, oh, that doesn't matter that much. Like, it's not good to be on my phone right before I go to bed, but like, it's not that big of a deal. But I think it kind of is. And I think we're starting to see that. And it's the same thing with gut, because we can carry stress in our gut. Remember, the gut and the brain are connected. So all of these things for preventative are really important. And I even include having fun on there, because I think it's just easy to like, just work, and we're very, as a culture, like pretty obsessed with productivity. I mean, I know I am. And so it's hard sometimes to get these things in or to feel like we're doing something. I think when we focus on these, even mindful eating is hard for me. Like, I'm eating in my car, I'm eating at my desk, I'm eating while I'm talking to someone, I'm drinking my smoothie like while I'm in an appointment, because it's the only time I'm not talking. But it's hard, but they are actually important. So this isn't just like a frou-frou slide. It's actually important to rebalance the nervous system, because that is connected to our gut, and it just helps kind of keep us in a healthy state. So that's kind of just the overview of like, what do we even mean when we say, gut is the beginning of everything. That's how we kind of work through healing the gut. And then this is going to be more, the next few slides focused on just pure nutrition. Just what are some things you can do today, whether it's short term while you're like maybe not feeling the best, or it could be like just preventative things, like just how do I keep my gut in a good place? How do I make it a little bit better or optimal? So these are very common triggers that I think are hidden in things. I have a spelling error. That are hidden in things, or that people who are working through active digestive issues don't realize are a trigger. So these are the less obvious ones. So gums. I talk about gums a lot. They are in a lot of packaged foods. They are in even like things like plant-based milks. Oat milk is probably the worst because it's very watery. Well, oat milk is, if you took oats and like soaked it in water, like it's pretty watery. So they add thickeners, and the thickeners are usually called gums. So you'll see these guar gum, locust bean gum, gellan gum, xanthan gum, carrageenan. if you have an awesome gut and you don't have any symptoms, it's probably not that big of a deal as long as you're not consuming huge amounts. They're not still not great for you, but if you're dealing with like IBS or something, these are most likely going to send you over the edge, and you won't know why, because people aren't thinking like, but I use almond milk and a banana and protein powder, and it's like, well, the gums in the milk are probably it. And you can get them without. Carbonated beverages, that's one that kind of sneaks up on people that I think they don't think about. But if you're prone to like bloating, I would say be aware. Like I'll have people who are drinking, they only drink Spindrift and no regular water. And I'm like, like you could probably do like a couple a week or like maybe one a day. But like, I think if you're only drinking those, it could be contributing to bloating. Chewing gum is another one that, again, I think we don't think about it. It's just like a simple thing you pop. But for some people, it's going to contribute to gas and bloating. Artificial sweeteners, I think, are just in so many things. And those for some people some people are sensitive to those. And then caffeine, especially if you're more prone to like loose stool, caffeine's going to like activate your nervous system, which activates your intestines. So that's usually not going to be your friend. So along the same lines, digestion hacks or things that are rather than avoid, that maybe you can focus on, that really for anyone in any situation, any of these things could be helpful, or are things to think about. So things I use in practice often or recommend would be things like ginger. Ginger, you can, and some of these like are very inexpensive. You can get ginger as a tea. You don't necessarily have to get it in capsules. It's always going to be stronger in capsules. Or like a liquid tincture, and then tea obviously would be like the weakest, or eating it. But tea obviously sometimes is just enough. You can start with things like that. So some of my clients who are on like GLPs and they're dealing with nausea, ginger is a great option, for again, whether it's tea or like those, even those candy chews. They're going to add some sugar, but like you can still get some amount of ginger from that. So ginger is a great one. It also improves, speeds up motility. So if someone's more constipation prone, ginger in any way, shape, or form helps stimulate digestion. So that's a good one for those type of people. Apple cider vinegar, this one was like kind of trendy for a while, I think. I don't know if it still is. It is an acid, so it's a weak acid. It's not nearly as strong as our stomach acid, but it is an acid. So really any kind of vinegar is. So apple cider has a little more health benefits than like white vinegar, but you can do, you want to do a shot of it before you eat or something. It is like an acid, so it will help break down, especially protein in the stomach. Now, again, not nearly as well as stomach acid. So if you need something stronger, you might have to go to like a supplement that's hydrochloric acid, which is what our stomach produces. But apple cider vinegar, it's a great little hack if you just need something gentle or you want to add some support for your digestion and metabolism. So I do approve of that one. I don't know about like the gummies and all the things. I mean, that's where like, you can't fit a lot in a gummy because the thing that makes it a gummy takes up all the space. So a gummy is like, you're not going to get as much of the actual therapeutic effect, but apple cider vinegar or even like lemon juice, I mean, to some extent, those things do stimulate digestion and stimulate the liver. Peppermint is another good one. Sometimes I have clients with like intestinal cramping, and peppermint can be like a lifesaver. Even just taking it as a tea, like a really strong tea, can sometimes be helpful. So it doesn't have to be, fancy or really strong supplements all the time. Sometimes you can just use food in the everyday, but that'll help more with like intestinal gas, so more like lower. Apple cider vinegar is going to work more upper. Ginger kind of does a little bit of everything. Fasting overnight. Now I could probably do a whole talk on this another time maybe, but fasting is its own science, and there is some science behind it. I don't typically recommend really long fasts, especially in women, unless you're in like a special situation or being monitored. But I think there's also something to be said for, let's at least fast 12 hours overnight, right? Let's not be, if we're eating I had a perfect example. I had a client, she was eating at dinner at like 7 or 8, and then she would have a snack. Now her snack was technically like high protein. It was like very low carb. It like really didn't have a lot in it. It was some sort of like protein ice cream thing she was making. And it was sweetened with like monk fruit or stevia or something, but she was eating it at 10 o'clock. And I finally was like, girl, I don't know what to tell you. You need a monitor. So we got her a CGM, like a continuous glucose monitor. It was literally going off. There was like an alarm and it was going off in the middle of the night because her blood sugar was dropping so low. But she wasn't eating carbs. It's just the timing. So like the timing of our food matters. And so even though she was fasting 12 hours, she was eating between like 2 in the afternoon and like 10 at night, or noon to 10. But I'm like, that's not working for you. So we had to shift it back. And then when she was eating like between, what did we shift it to? Like 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., totally went away. Like all her blood sugar fluctuations went away. So sometimes it's not just the food, it's like the timing and our circadian rhythm, and that matters sometimes. But fasting overnight is good. Or like if we're not thinking about, oh, I did have like a little snack at 10 and then I did have Starbucks at like 5:30, a.m., that's really not a full 12 hours. So 12 hours is good. I think everyone can decide or agree that 12 hours is good. Now, when you get into 16, 18 hours, I think that's where that's not going to be for everybody. But fasting 12 hours is helpful. It gives your body rest. And similarly, on that point, I know for a time since I've been in nutrition, you would hear some people say like you should eat, 5 or 6 small meals. Now, if you're an athlete and like maybe you have some very specific training requirements, maybe that makes sense. For the average person, it might actually make more sense to just eat like 3 meals a day and give your gut more rest in between. So I think that's something that's getting more recognition lately, and we're not as afraid to eat larger meals, but maybe fewer per day. So for some people, that's helpful as well. Mindfulness, I kind of mentioned before as well. Just this means eating and doing nothing else. Eating with someone is also good. When we've studied what we call blue zones. Have you guys heard of blue zones? Yeah. So it's funny because a lot of my clients ask me about blue zones, and I'm like, but it's not just the food they're eating. It's, because everyone's like, oh, do I have to eat like plant-based? I mean, plants are good, but it's also their lifestyle. It's not just the food they're putting in their body. It's the quality, it's the sourcing, and then they're like enjoying time with each other and they're resting and it's not rushed. And I don't know about you, but that's not a lot of times how I'm eating. So mindfulness just means like being aware of like, how full am I? How hungry am I? Just really like paying attention to what you're eating and not working, not driving, not multitasking while you're eating. So, and there actually is research on that it can decrease your digestion by up to 30% if you're multitasking while you're eating. So it's crazy. It's crazy that actually matters, because it sounds like something that might matter, but it sounds cool to say, but it actually does matter. And then thyroid is I just threw that in there because that's part of my journey, but it's honestly a part of so many women's journeys that like they don't even know, or they think they're crazy and their doctor's like, you're fine, you're within normal limits, and they're not. Or if someone is dealing with chronic constipation and have not had a full thyroid panel, 5 numbers, not 1, not 2, 5 numbers checked, do that first, because it matters. It's part of your metabolism. It stimulates, your brain stimulates your thyroid, and then that controls a lot of your digestive function. So a lot of my patients have subclinical hypothyroid. They don't need medicine, but they need something. They need some nutrition to get their thyroid working more optimally. And then that helps with a digestive problem. Other strategies, again, like anyone can use these, as long as you're not in an active flare. There might be like onions and garlic may not be your friend if you're dealing with IBS, but these are foods that help with healthy elimination, regular bowel movements. So pomegranate and berries are also very protective of the gut. They have a compound called polyphenols, and they're protective of the gut lining. Green tea, also very similar. Onions and garlic are good. They don't agree with everybody, but when your gut is healthy, they're very good for you. Beets stimulate the liver, which stimulates bile, which helps you go to the bathroom, eliminate toxins. And then herbs, again, this is another one where I think cooking with herbs seems so like fancy and bougie and fun, but like it actually serves like nutritional purposes, and it like helps our digestion and stimulates digestion. And then if you need to pull out the big guns, I do use in practice magnesium citrate sometimes, and other like herbs and stimulants like aloe or things like that. But magnesium, if you do use magnesium, you want it to be citrate if you're dealing with constipation. If you are on the other spectrum, do not get citrate, because you will not be happy. If you just want it for like sore muscles, get glycinate. But citrate will work more specifically on the bowels. So that one's good for constipation. And then protection. This is more from a preventative standpoint, kind of what I would call power foods that can keep us in a good place. The two main things to remember from a prevention standpoint are color and fiber. It's the easiest way to remember it. You don't have to like track, count, memorize anything. It's really just eating. Like when we teach little kids, like in nutrition, we teach them like eat the rainbow. It's really like an easy way to remember it. Just eat lots of different colors of things, and they all have different, purposes in the body. And then fiber is good for the gut. We don't have to go crazy with fiber. There was like a TikTok trend earlier this year, like fiber maxing or something, and it was kind of crazy. You don't have to go to that extreme. Anytime you see extremes, you should be like pump the brakes. But fiber is good for us, and it does remove. I mean, it even removes like microplastics. Like if you've been hearing about that and how we take in little amounts of plastic with everything we eat. Especially like coffee cups, like the to-go hot coffee cups, like that hot coffee like melts the plastic into your coffee. But like fiber helps move those toxins out. So fiber is good. But again, if you're eating color and just even fruits and vegetables, you'll get both of those things. So these are things like I like to incorporate. Smoothies and are not the answer, but at the same time they could be. I sometimes I'm just rushed or lazy or whatever you want to call it. I'm just doing too many things. So I am a fan of smoothies if it helps you get vegetables in and fiber. So I'll do like berries are really good for the gut, cucumber, leafy greens. I'll throw in protein powder if it's like more of a meal. Chia and flaxseed are great fiber options. They're good for hormone balance. They're good for gut protection and just general fiber. They have omega-3 fats, they have protein. They're just like a good little cheap, easy power food to kind of throw in. So I like smoothies just for protection because it's easier, I think, than like making a salad. Oops. I do. So if you're wondering like, well, how do you even do all this or know all this? I do testing. So if I'm working with someone who's in a flare or doesn't know what's going on or how did I get here? What is going on? I'm not getting any answers. My colonoscopy was fine, but I don't feel good type of a thing. This is what we go to. And we look at digestion, inflammation, imbalance or dysbiosis, we call it, or infection, and metabolic imbalances, which means like pro and prebiotic imbalances. So testing is out there. This has been around for 30 years probably. I couldn't tell you why it's not like standard of care. I really don't know why. I have a feeling it's probably an insurance driven type of situation. It's just not, we're not there yet. Now, like this company, for example, if you're 66 and you have Medicare, you can get this test for a discounted amount or sometimes even free. But why no one else can, I have no idea. So it's kind of just annoying that that's the situation we're in, but there is testing out there. So you have to pay cash for it. It's not super cheap. But if you just want to fix something one time, it is out there. And this also shows when I talked about like how estrogen interacts with the gut, it does show those markers as well. So you can literally see if somebody's holding on to estrogen and if it might be impacting their digestion or just some of their symptoms. Like I'll have women who might have acne, for example. It could be because they're holding estrogen, but it's not in their blood. It's like in their liver and their colon. And so it makes you kind of stagnant or congested, and then it comes out through the skin. So lots of really cool things we can find out from stool testing. It's not the most fun thing you'll do if you have to do it, but it's totally worth it from the information you get. So, and I have like clients that are like, I want to retest. I'm like, you don't need to retest. I'm like, I want to. I'm like, okay. I'm amazed at how many people want to do more than one of these in their whole life. But essentially at the end of the day, the shortcut to hormone health, I think, especially as we age, and it's not just as easy as it used to be, working on the gut comes first, and then all the other things can kind of fall into place. So skin, hormones, weight, metabolism, all the other things that people complain about, but it all, neurological, mood, all of it starts with the gut. So it's really fun to be able to actually, look at some of these markers and make changes. So that is kind of the gist of gut health in a nutshell and how it impacts the rest of the body and how we can really get to the root cause and address the source of those challenges. So here's my info. give me a follow, or feel free to let me know if you have questions. Does anyone have questions right now? You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Great. So I think Rhya for joining us and concluding our series. And this is a fantastic way to do it, talking about gut health. I learned so much. And so next steps, we're going to conclude for the evening. Thank you all for joining us live, or if you're watching at home. While this is the conclusion of our Women's Wellness series for the fall, there are lots of ways you can stay connected to LeanNation Ballantyne, and we do actually have our Thrive Through the Holidays Challenge that's kicking off next week, starting November 10th. That's a great way to be able to connect and focus on nutrition and wellness through the holiday season. That challenge is a 5-week nutrition accountability challenge with a high-touch support group, discounted meals from our team, so done for you meal prep, and then lots of other great support through community sweat opportunities and other things. So if you want to learn more about that, just talk to one of us in the room or find the information from our socials or online. All right, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me. Thank you.